Hi, I'm Dr. Gingeraya, and I'm with Women's Educational Resource Entity. And today I have co-founder Diana Shultz, and she will be one of our panelists at our January 24th session, which is Ways to Become a Real Estate Investor. So I'm going to start by having Diana introduce herself and tell us what she's doing right now.
Well, thank you for having me, Ginger. So my name is Diana Shultz. My day job, as I call it, my 8 to 5, I am a hospital CEO. I have been doing that for 18 years now, and started off in a small 31-bed hospital in Corpus Christi, got up to 120-bed hospital in Las Cruces, and now went through West Texas and came back, and now I'm down in the Rio Grande Valley area where I am running a 32-bed rehab hospital in Weslaco, Texas.
And that's actually how we started Women's Educational Resource Entity because we were sitting around talking about how to invest our money and we started throwing things around. And Diana, who's incapable of thinking incrementally or small, just ran with it. So we're going to talk about why she's a panelist. So tell us again, how many properties do you have now?
So I have 4 rental houses. I have 2 in El Paso, 2 in Corpus Christi. And I have to say, Ginger, you're very modest because you actually were my inspiration for getting started. And I tell that story to everybody. But Ginger and I were talking one day, and she mentioned that she had a rental home. And as I kept probing and asking questions, she got my wheels turning. And so one turned into 4 very quickly.
Very quickly, very quickly. Okay, so who manages your 4 properties? Because I think that one of the questions that I get when I talk about having rental properties is people usually their first kind of reaction is like, ugh, who manages that? Like, or you're the one getting rent, like, and I'm like, no, I'm not the one collecting rent. I'm not screening people, right? So who's managing your 4 rental properties across the state?
So the 2 in El Paso, I do have a property management company that handles that for me. The way they work is they take a certain percentage straight off the top of the rent. They get the phone calls in the middle of the night if there's anything that happens with the property. And we have had a couple of little things that have come up, a water heater that burst. I did have one of the houses is on a corner lot, and so I had somebody that took the corner too fast, and their vehicle actually ran into a piece of the brick retaining wall in the landscape. So we had to fix that. So I have that company that does that for a small fee. I know that that's also something that people wonder about. Well, why would I get into this if someone's going to take a percentage of that? It's for that particular company, it's only 9% of the rent that they take. Well worth it, so that I don't get those phone calls to do any sort of rehab or maintenance. And then in Corpus, I do have another company that handles that area as well for me.
Did you ever try to manage it yourself?
No, I did not. I knew going into it, my lifestyle, because my day job is so busy, and sometimes I go in super early and sometimes I stay late. There's times that, report time, I have to work on the weekends. I need my sleep. So I cannot afford to be getting a phone call in the middle of the night that something has occurred. I don't have the time to go and collect rent, to be after a renter that might be going through a hardship. I definitely would work with somebody, but I don't have the time to be able to deal with that effectively.
Right. Okay, great. Okay, so with Michaela, we talk a little bit about generational wealth, and you and I were talking about what those properties, what those investment properties mean, and what they can do for us. And we talk a little bit about, what you can do with all that equity. And so I've thrown the idea around like, well, I could, pay for my kids' college with that. Yeah, whenever I want to renovate my house, I throw around the idea of like I could pull out an equity loan and, renovate my home. And technically, I'm not the one paying for that renovation. So, what types of plans do you have, or how do you plan to use like the equity in those rental properties, or what's your strategic plan with those houses?
So when I first started out buying the houses, they were all separate bank loans.
Okay.
And they were all what you would consider a commercial residential loan, right?
Okay.
So yeah, because I let me backtrack a little bit. I did establish an LLC for these properties. And so what ended up happening as I was buying these, that's when the housing market started to creep up.
Okay.
And it wasn't quite in the height of things, so I was still a competitor in the game. So I got up to the 4 properties, and one of the loan specialists from my original bank moved to a different bank, and then she reached out to me once she got established in her new role, and we were able to refinance all 4 properties, all 4 bank notes into one. And at that time, it had already been quite a few months. So we were able to do a refinance with a cash out option.
Wow.
We cashed out 20,000,
Mhm.
and that we keep as an emergency fund.
Awesome.
So right now, in January, here we are, it's property tax time. And so that's what I'll use. I'll use that little emergency fund to pay the property taxes on all 4 properties. And
Mhm.
then we'll rebuild that with the rent payments that we'll receive. I can also use that towards any maintenance. If the water heater that burst had been a certain amount of money that the rent for that particular house wasn't going to cover it, then I would have dipped into that emergency fund. So I kind of keep reinvesting that into the houses.
Awesome. And then if you found another property you wanted to purchase or something, you could use that fund for that.
Sure. Right.
Awesome. 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 Okay. And then as far as I think my last question for you is, how do you kind of stay open to new ideas? Or because I know you're not complacent. You're not like, okay, that's it. That's, 4 properties and that's it. How are you staying like open to new ideas, to new ways to invest your money? Like, how are you looking to grow your business?
So there's a lot of different things. I've been fortunate that I've been working in very different locations, right?
Mhm.
I was living on the Gulf Coast, moved to the desert. Then I was working an assignment in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, and now down to the Valley. So what I do is I just kind of keep my eyes open. I talk to a lot of as I'm networking for my day job. I find out what other people are into. For example, when I was in Dallas, Turo.com had really hit the scene, lots of commercials on TV. One of our employees landed this sweet deal, found herself a Tesla on Facebook Marketplace
Mm.
for 10 grand. And all it
Wow.
needed was a new battery that was like $1,000. And she was renting that out for $150 a day. Once I heard that, I was like, I need to learn more. I want to, it was all about it. And then, down here and looking at, what do people do for the weekends or the evenings? I have seen where kind of this mid valley region, which would incorporate Harlingen and Westaco, there's kind of a lack of activity for families. So I'm exploring the idea of a multi-venue family event center, something that would have like an arcade, food, go-karts, miniature golf, something that you could take your whole family and spend the day there.
Mhm.
And have a great time. And it's not something you would do maybe every weekend, but it definitely is something that you would look forward to, could increase tourism, definitely would bring jobs to the area. So I'm looking at things that also can be funded by an SBA loan.
Mhm.
So that it's not taking away from either the other LLCs or from my own personal monies.
Mhm. And I think you said something that's really important that I think a lot of, especially women, overlook or ignore the importance of, but you were talking about networking.
Right.
And that's actually how I met you, is because you're like this awesome networker and you just get out there. And I mean, what tips do you have for women? I'm sorry to just put you on the spot, to get out there and start networking and get out of their comfort zone, because I think you need to do a mastermind class on how to network, because that's like one of your strengths.
Well,
Yeah.
I will tell you, it's work. I'm not going to lie. It is, you say comfort zone, and you're absolutely right. It is an uncomfortable thing to do, to walk into a room where you don't know anybody and strike up a conversation and things like that. Obviously, if there's if you can use the buddy system, if there's somebody that can introduce you to Rotary Club or the local chamber or things like that, wonderful. Take advantage of that. Or if there's, if you have a girlfriend or a sibling or a cousin even that wants to go to a couple of these events with you, then, that makes it a little easier. But sometimes you just got to take that bull by the horse and do it by yourself. And so, I have to say that I am. I just read this term. It was an extroverted introvert or something. I just saw that in a magazine somewhere. But by nature, I truly am an introvert. I do enjoy my quiet time. So you just got to push yourself to get out there, depending on what it is that you really want to accomplish.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. All right. So just a reminder, we will be meeting on January 24th. It's a Tuesday. The name of the session is Ways to Become a Real Estate Investor. And this session will be available on Zoom. So you can join us there. And we're going to put a link in this message for how you can purchase your ticket, or you can join us in person in El Paso. But again, half of our presenters will be available on Zoom, so you're very welcome to join us on Zoom. And I think that's it. Thanks a lot, Diana. We'll
Thank
see you
you. I
soon.
appreciate it. I hope to see everybody there.